day one of the Accepted Challenge, and I'm gonna actually do a little bit of logistical things here to make sure that I am live and that you guys can all see me and find me. I know usually it takes a couple of seconds to load. Okay, great. I am live. And let me just go ahead and pin this. All right. Okay, perfect. I just have a different screen, so I'm just sort of trying to make sure that my live video shows. Great. Okay, so welcome to day one of the Accepted Challenge. If you are here, let me know you're here. Tell me your name, what grade you're in, and let's just do a little bit of intro. And great. Okay, so I've been seeing all of your guys' posts inside the group, and it's amazing, right? How you get to sort of reflect on your past year of 2019 GPA wise, and that you can also plan ahead what your goal is for 2020. I actually didn't even, so I'm just trying to look at the, okay, great. You guys can view my stream. Perfect. Yeah, so it's great because we get to set goals for our GPA, something that I've never actually done when I was in high school, to be honest with you. But having, been through USC and Harvard and now, working with my own students, I really love setting goals and I know how powerful that can be. And so I want to share that knowledge with you and help you become a more intentional and powerful high school student navigating through this college admissions journey. And I always think that this process could be really fun. And it is really fun because if you do your passion project, if you're creating something of your own, then it's always going to be fun. So today we're going to be talking about GPA, and let me just say hi to some of you guys. I know I just have like two different platforms right now, so it's just hard for me to see your names. Hello, Sanjita. Hi, Julie. Oh, Joseph, senior. Awesome. Great. All right. So a couple of logistical things and rules for the Accepted Challenge is that you probably did get the day one packet, the workbook that we sent out this morning. And what you can do is you can either print it out and write it and take a picture of it and post it inside the Facebook group to get credit. You can also, just like type on the PDF using preview feature on your computer. You can also just use your own notebook. You don't have to print it out if you don't have a printer, if you don't have to like use a digital platform to write your responses. You can just write it in your notebook. So it doesn't matter how you do it. I just want you to answer the questions, and that's the way it works. If you are attending live, you are going to get extra points for attending. And if you are submitting those questions inside the Facebook group, you will also be getting points for that. And I got a few questions asking like, okay, like what does the winner get? The winner of this challenge and this competition will get a 1 year free membership to our Conquer College Admissions membership. So you're getting 1 year of free college admissions advice, information, strategies, master classes. You're going to learn about financial aid, scholarships, GPA, SAT. You're going to just learn about everything. So the winner will be getting access to our Conquer College Admission membership program for free. So that's such an amazing reason, right? To show up every day. And obviously, prize is always fun, but the most important part is that you show up every single day. And I've created this challenge so that you don't have to spend too much time on it. So last round, we had videos and all that kind of stuff. And I thought, you know what? High school students are so busy. I want to make sure that this process is simple. I want it to be 10 to 15 minutes. And if you guys have any questions, you guys could come onto these lives and also hear me talk a little bit about what's on the workbook. And so I've created this so that you don't have to spend too much time on it. And that's really the whole purpose. So let's get into today's topic, which is GPA. As you probably read from the workbook, GPA is your number one asset, hands down, because your transcript is going to be the most important part of your application, and it will higher your chances of getting accepted into your, into your dream colleges or colleges that are a good fit for you. Your college list will totally change based on your GPA. So GPA is very important. And whether you're aiming for Ivy League or top tier, state school, wherever, it doesn't matter. I believe that as a high school student, it is our duty and our responsibility to study hard, raise our grades if it's not where you want it to be, and show up 100%. It doesn't have anything to do with, okay, if I don't have straight A's, I'm not good enough. If I don't have straight A's, like, I don't need to have straight A's to feel good about myself. That's not my point. My point is that we, get to go to high school once, right? We don't go to high school twice. We get to go to college once, and we get to live once. And wherever we are in our stage in our lives, we want to show up 100%. Because there's nothing wrong with showing up 100%. And so I'm not telling you that straight A determines your value and worth. I'm just telling you that if you do aim for better grades, and if you're always striving for that growth pattern, that, oh, this semester I got a B in AP Calculus. Well, you know what? Next semester I'm going to get an A, and here's how I'm going to do it. And that just shows so much of your grit, your personality, your values, and all of those things to colleges, but most importantly to you. Right? I don't think that just getting good grades just for the sake of getting it is the whole intention here. It's just more about how you are growing as a person and how you are showing up every single day. And I actually was looking through a couple of the responses that you guys were sharing with the day one prompt, and someone said, oh, I'm not getting an A in this class because I'm not doing well on my quizzes. I'm getting B's in them and C's in them. And one person can say, okay, that's the way it is, right? I'm just going to get B's on my quizzes. Like, my teacher is horrible. We've all blamed our teachers, right? And I'm guilty of that too. Like, when I was in high school, I would say, like, oh my gosh, my AP bio teacher doesn't teach me anything, like blah, 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 blah. And looking back at it now, those were all excuses. And there's always something that I can do about my grades, and I could do anything to make that better, right? And so basically that's what she said. And I thought, well, if you are getting B's and C's on quizzes, how can we turn that around? What is not working right now? And how can we make sure that we create an actionable step or implement a different strategy so that you can get an A in that class or with all of your quizzes, right? So another reason why GPA is so important is scholarships. And I'm not a scholarship expert. I don't help students out with scholarship processes. But what I do know in this process is that when I was applying for a lot of external scholarships in college and grad school, they all had GPA requirements, right? Minimum GPA of 3.5, minimum GPA of 3.7, minimum GPA of whatever. And when I was applying, I was like, oh, wow, I qualify for this scholarship because my GPA is, above 3.5 or above 3.7. So scholarship and merit aid scholarships, things like that, your GPA will play a role in that process for sure, right? We always talk about like PSAT, having good PSAT scores will get you to this National Merit Scholarship and things like that. But with all the external scholarships that I've applied for, they've all had some sort of a GPA requirement. And so that's another benefit. Another reason why GPA is so important another reason why I feel like a lot of students struggle with, oh my gosh, like I need to get better grades, but I can't, is because when we were in elementary school and middle school and high school, I want you to think about this, okay? Like, when did someone ever teach you how to study, right? I feel like when we go to school, elementary, middle school, high school, what we think is, okay, I'm going to Algebra 1 class to learn about Algebra 1 concepts. I'm going into AP US History so I could learn about the World War II, right? But when did anyone ever but when did anyone teach us how to study? And these are some of the things that I really studied a lot at Harvard, because that was my frustration. Like maybe some kids, some students know how to study because or they just like read something and they could just like absorb all the information and just spit it back out and get A's. But that wasn't the case for me, right? Like if I didn't read a chapter thoroughly enough for like, let's say Lord of the Flies, I would just get an F on the quiz, right? I don't have crazy memory. I don't have like, this like, yeah, I just don't have crazy memory, right? And I used to think, oh, that must mean that I'm not smart enough, right? Like that must mean that, I'm just going to always sort of be this kind of a student. But what I realized when I was attending USC and Harvard was it's just that no one teaches us how to study. And so the way that I started to learn about how to study and get A's and all that kind of stuff was I started watching a lot of documentaries about how to study. And I know that's like so nerdy. I'm like geeking out, but I don't care because I love talking about how to study, right? And that's why I do the work that I do, because to me, it's like so fun, right? If I told like someone else to do it or my friends to do it, they'll be like, heck no, I'm not going to talk about studying, doing a Facebook Live about studying. But so I started watching all these documentaries. I started analyzing students who are getting good grades and things like that. And I created my own system. That's what I teach to my students inside my programs. And learning how to prioritize, learning how to manage your time, learning how to study for math quizzes, learning how to study for DBQs, learning how to study for AP bio tests, things like that, right? So it's mainly because we were never taught how to study and how to manage our time. Those two reasons are the reasons why we sometimes feel like we can't get the grades. We can't get the grades. And one thing that you also need to understand is that according to the Stanford professor, Carol Dweck, she says that there's two types of mindset. One is a fixed mindset and one is a growth mindset. A fixed mindset is, someone who says, okay, I've gotten B's and C's and like, I'm okay with that, right? So they start identifying themselves with like, I'm a B student, right? When was like one time that you said that, right? I'm a B student, so I'm just going to stay here. I feel good here. I'm a C student, so I'm just going to stay here, so I feel good here. And on the other hand, there's another type of growth mindset, which we call growth mindset, which is always like, all right, I got to be on my quiz and how can I make a, improvement and get an A, right? They don't attach it to their identity at all, right? So that process is going to be so helpful for you guys. And growth mindset is essentially what I teach all of my students. Like some of my students will say like, oh my gosh, how can I like get into Stanford one day? How can I get into USC one day? And my question is, why not? You have control over your life. You can do whatever you want. You can, if you get a B on your science quiz, well, you know what? You can study all the materials 2 days, 3 days in advance, solve all the questions that could potentially come out on the test and give your 100%. And when you give your 100%, right? That's self-integrity, right? Some students will say like, oh, I did study a lot. But it's like, really? Like, who are you kidding, right? Like, we know deep down whether we gave our 100% or not, right? And you only know whether that is true for you. So you have the power to study, to make changes, to have a growth mindset and say, you know what, I'm going to get an A on my next quiz. Right? Again, this has nothing to do with your value or this has nothing to do with your worth. It has to do with how you are living your life and how you are showing up every single day, right? So that's another thing I want to talk about. Another thing, some students will say like, I don't have the best grades, so I can't get into these colleges, right? That's a fixed mindset. Why can't you get into these colleges? I mean, my GPA I didn't have straight A's. Let's just put it out there as a high school student. And when I was applying to Harvard, I didn't have the best GRE scores, which is essentially the test that you take to get into grad school, right? So it's kind of like the SAT. And I'm not here to tell you that you don't need to have good scores to get in. But if you gave your 100% and you still didn't get the grade that you want, you can still show improvement. You can still show growth. And so can you just imagine like one student in first semester, she had 2 B's and 3 A's, and second semester, she has 4 A's and 1 B. That is beyond a transcript because colleges are always looking for who are you, right? I was talking to another college expert, and she sort of specializes in college visit. And we said that, this college process is kind of like marriage, right? I know you guys are all high school students and you guys are not even thinking about getting married, right? But it is really like that, right? You've really got to evaluate your fit with the school. You really got to evaluate, is this school going to be a good fit for me? Not just based on, oh, I'm just going to get into Harvard, or I'm just going to go into USC because it looks good. Because eventually that will backfire, right? If we're not honest with ourselves, it will backfire eventually, right? So don't give up. Like, if you are a junior right now and you're like, oh my gosh, I only have one more semester, I don't even know if my college list, it represents my GPA, why don't I challenge you to get straight A's next semester, right? And that's why I gave you the prompt. And the prompt that I gave you was, what is it that you're doing right now that's not working for you? And what is something that you're not doing right now that could give you the result that you're looking for? And a lot of you guys are saying, it's procrastination. So let's talk about procrastination a little bit. The reason why we procrastinate is because our reason why we need to get straight A's or better grades is not strong enough. And that's why in the booklet, for the day one booklet, I'm talking about why, like, why is it important that you get good grades? Why is it important that you get accepted into the school, right? I don't care about the reason, right? That's your life. I don't get to tell you these are the reasons that you should have. However, you need to come up with your strong reason why this is so important to you, right? For example, maybe I can say, okay, you know what? I'm going to start working out every single day because 3 months from now, my friend's getting married and I really want to fit into this really tight dress, right? I have this really strong reason why I want to lose weight in the next 90 days, right? That's an example. So for you, so you need to think about, if I do get straight A's or if I do get good grades compared to my previous records, how would that feel for me? What would that mean for me? What are some of the benefits that would come into my life because I raised my grades? What would how can I show up to my like, what would I tell my parents? Obviously, we're not doing all of this for our parents, right? And to be honest with you, as an Asian American, as an Asian American first generation, to live in the United States, because my parents are immigrants from Korea, I actually initially lived off of this idea that I'm doing this for my parents, right? And that is a very dangerous game to play, because my life is my life, right? My life is not a life that I live based on what my parents want. And there's a difference between, right, like, I'm being like rebellious and all that kind of stuff. It's not in that way at all. So essentially, we procrastinate because our reasons are not good and reasons are not compelling. So maybe you can check in and say, who am I doing this for, right? Why do I want these grades? Why do I want to get into this school, right? And take your parents out of that picture and focus on you. For me, it was always, if I can walk into Harvard and take a class that Dr. Snow teaches, and Dr. Snow actually teaches at Harvard, I think that, I just imagined that, right? And I was like, that would be so wonderful. I would just be so honored to learn from her, right? And so those are the things that really got me to say, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to study this right now. I don't want to prepare for my pre-calc test 2 to 3 days in advance, but I'm gonna show up, right? So having a strong reason why is so important. And this goes above and beyond GPA. This is just life, right? Our reasons needs to be very, very strong and compelling so that you hit the goals that you want. I'm trying to actually see some comments. So I don't see your guys'. Okay, got it. So someone says, can you post any resources on study skills? The Accepted Challenge is not about resources. It's not about the how-to. those are some of the things that I cover inside my membership. This 5-day accepted challenge is for you to get clear on what was my result, my GPA result in 2019, and what do I want in 2020, and how am I gonna, why is it important that I get there? What is my why? And because if that's there, you don't really need any techniques. You don't really need all the surface level strategies. Do you guys know why New Year resolutions fail within 2 months? So statistically speaking, that's what they say. It's because they are not just rooted deeply within you, right? It's based on, oh, these are like the surface level things that I'm going to start doing. But it's like, why is this so important to you? Like we never rarely check on the why, right? Let me just look at some other comments. Okay, a student says, how do I balance school and my sport? I'm a junior in high school. So what I teach in my program and to my students is that everyone has commitments, right? Everyone has extracurriculars. They have soccer practice, they have tennis practice, they have ASB events, all that kind of stuff. So that's inevitable, right? So the only way for you to make sure that you can still get good grades and do well on your quizzes and tests if you plan ahead, right? If you have a test, I tell my students that we have a 4 rule, and I teach them like within four days how you should allocate your time. If you have a quiz coming up, you've got to study 2 days in advance. And that comes from preparation, right? So, and another thing is this. High school students these days, and this is not everyone, but most of the students, they're way too overcommitted. They're participating in volunteering, they're doing SAT, they're doing this, they're doing summer program applications, they're doing blah, 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 blah. Because high school students tend to think, okay, if I'm doing a lot, colleges are going to love me. But that's not true. Colleges, when they see your resume with like all of these clubs and all of these extracurriculars, the first thing they think is, oh, wow, that's very suspicious. Like, how did you do all of that, right? That was one of the things that the Stanford College Admission Officer said. So it's not about doing more, but it's about doing the right things. And so if you are overcommitted and you feel like you've spread yourself too thin, then you need to evaluate, all right, like there are some of the things that I need to eliminate. And I actually for this challenge, I'm not covering that, but most of you guys should know who've been on my group for a long time. I teach something called the theme, right? The academic interest, personal interest, and value strength, and values, personality, and strength, right? And from there, what you want to think about is, what are some of the extracurriculars that I'm participating in that is not strengthening my theme? Because if it's not strengthening your theme, why are you doing it? Okay, so that might also give you some more time so that you can have more time to study for the tests and quizzes. Okay, and another thing is that I think our culture sort of framed it in a way that if we are busy, if we are stressed out, we're on the right track, right? Like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Like you guys say that a lot, right? Like, I'm so busy, I'm still stressed out. And I actually, when I was in high school, that was like a really prideful thing to say. I used to say this to like my friends, like, oh my gosh, I pulled an all-nighter. I'm like so tired. I am just like so overwhelmed. And now looking back at those times, like what a silly thing to say. That's like nothing to be proud of. Someone who is really successful in a healthy way is someone who plans ahead, still gets good grades, and commits themselves to just core activities and sleeps early and has a exciting passion project going on, which we'll talk about in day 4, right? So it's not good to say that, oh, I'm so stressed out all the time. Because if you do that, you're really emphasizing that to your brain, like, okay, you are really stressed out, you are in panic mode, you are sort of not healthy right now. But why would you want to make yourself not healthy? Like, why would we ever want to do that? Did you guys think about it? It's like so crazy. And I mean, I'm sharing this with you guys because I've obviously went to high school, college, grad school, and all of that. So I've experienced all of that, like it comes from my mistakes and error, right? And I'm just telling you, like, we don't have to be stressed out about all of these things. It's so refreshing to hear you say this. Thank you. Awesome. Yes. I wish that someone told me this when I was in high school, you know? What time do you think is a good time to sleep for a kid who does extracurriculars and studies? Everyone is different, right? There used to be like this trend where like wake up at 5 a.m. and like have a productive morning. But that's actually, I don't agree with that because some people are very, they love staying up until 2 to 3 a.m. That's when they're really focused. And there are people where they need to go to bed early. Like my student last year, she was like getting straight A's. She had passion projects going. She got into Columbia, right? Like all these things. And I was like, hey, like, what time do you sleep? And she was like, oh, I go to bed at 11 all the time. And I'm like, that's good for you, right? So please do not follow other people's strategies just because it works for them. That doesn't mean that it works for you, right? There is no one rule that is applied to everyone, right? So for you, why don't you think about, yeah, when am I most focused? When can I really study without distractions and I could have the most amount of result from studying that time? Another thing is studying longer doesn't mean that you're studying hard. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I like thought of this right now because when I was in high school, I used to be so proud of studying for a long time, right? But what's the point of studying for a long time if I can't get enough sleep, if I don't feel good the next day, if I still don't get good grades, right? So it's about studying strategically and planning it out and then sleeping early, right? For me personally, this is something that I discovered when I was in college. I study really well in the morning. So I used to wake up at like 4 a.m. to 7 a.m. And around that time, I would go to Starbucks. Like my local Starbucks next to my house, they opened really early. So that's when I would solve like all of my calculus problems and study because I'm not like a night owl. Like I can't do all-nighters, all that kind of stuff. So to answer your question, you want to think about when do I perform, you know, at my optimal level, because that's going to give you a better sense of, you know. I'm just going to pick out a good question and let's see. And when I mean good question, it's a question that I think a lot of people will benefit from so that I'm not picking questions that are too individualized. Okay, I like this question. Let me just share this right here. So one of the name doesn't pop up here, but someone is asking, do colleges like an upward trend in your GPA? What do you guys think? Of course, right? One of my students, actually, I shared this story a few weeks ago in my Facebook group. One of my students, she worked with me for 1 year. And for the 1 year, her GPA did go up, but it wasn't at a point where it was like completely, you know, an upward trend. And finally, she told me that she got 3 A's and 2 B's. And that never happened before because previously it was like mostly C's and then a B, right? So can you just imagine the college admission officers seeing this trend of gradual growth and then quantum leaping, like you know, a really strong growth pattern? And can you imagine what she could write about in her college essay about that growth pattern? Right? It's amazing. You can write about so much. And what that growth shows is everything, like your personality, your willingness to grow. And my student always showed up that way. When we would go on calls, she would say, I really want to work this out. I really want to improve. I really need the motivation and I will get it. And she did it, right? And some people might say, oh, it's not straight A's. Like, doesn't matter, right? But so what, right? She still improved. So of course, I'm going to say yes to that question. All right. So I'm going to answer this question here, which is, are we going to be covering time management during time challenge? So everything that is very strategy based, like how do I study? How do I manage my time? Those are the things that I cover inside my membership program. But in the accepted challenge, I will share with you a little bit about time management. And time management is essentially, it boils down to your why. Like, why is it so important for you to do well? Again, it has everything to do with goal setting, right? I mean, I can say, oh, I want to get straight A's, but if I don't really want it, right? Like my head says I want it, but my heart's kind of like, it'll be good if I get it, but if I don't get it, I don't care, kind of a thing, right? Then do you think you will manage your time? No, because whether you get the result or not, it doesn't matter, right? There are thousands, I mean, not thousands, but there are like hundreds of time management techniques out there. And trust me, I've gone through a lot of them. But the ones that truly work and stick are the ones that are the times when I have a strong reason why I want to hit this goal, right? And of course, I'm talking about this in a very broad, in a broad perspective, but I do talk about, the hows and how to manage your time, how to prioritize. I actually have this system that I call the priority planner, where students write down exactly, what quizzes they have, tests they have, what they need to be working on first, and all that kind of stuff. So all of that is provided, but for this challenge, I want you to think about more of the big picture, why this is important to me, so that if you were to learn a technique, if you were to learn a how-to, the strategy that you will learn will stick with you for a really long time, or even forever. Another thing I want to talk about is that some students might say, well, I don't need to get good grades. I don't care if I get good grades, whatever, right? Grades never go away. They are your permanent record. So what I mean by that is you're still going to need to get good grades in college. Let me tell you the biggest gap that I see. When a student goes from middle school to high school, the biggest gap. Students who've been getting good grades in middle school, their grades will start to drop because they're like, oh my gosh, in middle school, we never really had to study this hard. I never really had to prepare for my test like this way. So in high school, their grades drop, and some students are like, I guess I'm not that smart, which is totally not true. Everyone has the capacity to get straight A's, right? Everyone, or good grades, whatever that means to you, right? And then another gap is from high school to college. So in high school, you're just kind of like, whatever, I don't really need to get good grades, blah, 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 whatever your reasons are. And college comes along. And in college, no one is in control of your homework. You don't have, there are deadlines, but if you don't submit it, you're not going to get points, right? And in colleges, a lot of the courses are just made up of 4 chunky tests. When I was taking my first econ class at UCLA, we had 4 tests. That's it. Homework doesn't count. They don't care if you do your homework, right? It's not that they don't care, but colleges know that you are a young adult and you don't need that kind of turn in your homework kind of a thing. So when you're in college, a lot of students, their GPA drops dramatically because they've never really thought about time management. They never really thought about study techniques, right? So, and then GPA leads to what? Your career, right? Some employers, they look at your GPA. You write it on your resume, right? Just even if they don't look at it, I think it's really important to always show up to the best version and to show up 100% at all times. All right, I like this question here. The student is asking, I'm confused. Is straight A's important or improvement in grade? I want to challenge all of you guys. We have thousands of students in the challenge. I encourage and challenge all of you guys to get straight A's next semester. A lot of things will change for you if that's your goal. You're going to have to give up a couple of things that suck up a lot of your time. You might need to stop going on Instagram during weekdays, or maybe you'll go on Instagram after you're done studying, or maybe you'll go on Instagram during breaks. You might need to stop playing games during weekdays. Like, there will be sacrifices that you will be making. There will be new habits that you'll be implementing, but I challenge you. Why can't you, right? So my answer to that is you get to choose. Do I really want straight A's? Do I really want to see that happen? Do I really believe in myself? Do I really trust in my abilities? And the reason why some people are saying, oh, I don't want to get straight A's is because they don't believe in themselves. They think, oh, I can't do it, right? But it starts from you believing in yourself first. You know how like sometimes we say, oh, my mom doesn't even believe in me. Like my parents don't even believe in me. Who cares? This is you. This is your life. This is your GPA. You've got to believe in yourself, and that's all that matters, right? Another thing is, when I was in high school, I thought I was always like a BC student and my friends were all straight A students, and that really messed me up because I thought, oh, Jennifer is like a straight A student, duh, that's why she gets good grades. But I think I always told myself like, oh, I'm not an A student anymore, right? And I regret it so much because I am. Everyone is. If we just plan things correctly, if we start implementing the right study techniques, if we instill new habits in our lives, and if we have a strong reason why, everyone could get good grades. So anyway, my answer to that question is you get to pick what's important to you, right? All righty. I'm going to pick out one more question and then we're going to wrap it up. But if you guys, let's see. So today we're not going to be talking about extracurriculars. We're just talking about GPA today. And when we're talking about interest and passion on day 3 and 4, we'll start talking about extracurriculars. So a lot of you guys are asking questions. Okay, let me just put this question right here. A lot of you guys are asking like, okay, unweighted, weighted, like how does that work? I don't want you guys to think about that right now. Just the goal is let me get as many A's as possible, right? Then your unweighted GPA will be amazing. Your ranking will be amazing. Your weighted GPA will be amazing, right? So why can't we just focus on, okay, this is the end result that I'm looking for? And if you do well with getting those A's, then you will have good unweighted and weighted GPA, right? And you can report whichever one when you're applying. And some schools will say, oh, we're only going to look at weighted. We're only going to look at unweighted. When you do common application, you can choose, right? So don't worry about that. Just not worry, but just focus on what is it that I can control and what is my goal for 2020 and how am I going to get there, right? Why is it important to me that I get there? That's what I want you to think about. All righty. I just want to answer all of these questions, you guys. but I'm trying to keep these sessions pretty concise because in previous times I've just like went over 1 hour and such. So I don't want it to be too long for people who need to catch up and such. I'll do one more question. All right, I think all the questions have been, the ones that I really wanted to highlight have been answered, but let me just wrap it up here. With GPA, right, do not limit yourself. Don't think I could only get here when there's like an infinite amount of possibilities, right? Don't let anyone tell you what grade you can get or what grade you can't get. I think sometimes, this is not all the time, but sometimes parents will say like, you know, like, you got an A in that quiz? Like, really? You know, like those kinds of things, right? I mean, parents are always supportive and we love our parents and all that kind of stuff, but you've always got to bring it back to you. This is my life. This is my GPA. This is my college admissions journey. And how amazing would it feel for you if you, maybe 5 years later, right? You probably graduated college already or something like that. And you look back at your high school year and you're like, wow, there was that one semester that I've decided to make some big changes in my life and aim for some awesome grades. And I'm still proud of that, right? And that just has so many benefits. You have more college choices. Obviously, there are thousands of colleges out there. But another thing that I want to talk about is, and you guys could agree with me or disagree, it doesn't matter. This is my perspective and my opinion, is that if I want to go to USC, if I want to go to Harvard, if I want to go to UPenn, Wharton School, if I want to go to Rice, I don't need to justify my reason to anyone. I get to go wherever I want because that's where I want to go. I don't need to justify why to anyone, right? Sometimes as high school students, we can think like, I feel like I need to get permission from someone, right? Like my parents has to agree with me. But you get to set your goals. And when you start setting your own goals and really connecting to why that is so important to you, the amount of growth you'll see in your GPA will be different. You'll plan ahead. You'll start learning different study techniques. You will start to master your own time management skills. You'll be more proactive in class because life is too short to say, I'm going to play small. I'm just going to get the B's and I'm going to get the C's and I'm fine, right? So that's one of the things that I really wanted to share with high school students out there. And I hope that this gives you comfort knowing that you have 100% control over this. And if we can make it a challenge for everyone to aim for straight A's or 3 A's, 4 A's, whatever goal you want to set, I just cannot imagine how your life will change with that, right? So, all right, that is it for today's live Q&A, day one. I hope that you enjoyed our session here. Just to recap again, for those of you who joined a little bit later, you want to, with the workbook that I sent you guys today, you can go ahead and print it out and write it, or you can just like write over it on PDF and take a picture of it, or you can just use your notebook. You don't need to print out my notebook if you don't want to print it out. You can just use your notebook. But I just, we created the workbook so that it could really like make things organized for you. So you can do whatever you want, but just post it inside the Facebook group so you get credit for today. And for those of you who attended today's live, we will also give you bonus points for attending live. And the winner will be getting 1 year free access to our membership program. And I'll talk a little bit more about the Concord College Admission membership. Maybe I'll do a video Wednesday or something like that. But for now, I really want to change things up for you. Okay, like your energy level, how you're showing up, the goals you're setting, all of that kind of stuff. So, so make sure to post inside the group, and we will give, until, let's say, if you could just post it by end of today, wherever your time zone is, we will give you credit. So make sure to post it today so that for day 2, you can post day 2. Again, don't spend too much time on this. I've created the workbook so that you only have to spend about 10 to 15 minutes. And I wanted this to be a powerful experience for you so that when you're writing it, it is intentional and you're just like really, feeling it. Like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for these goals. I'm so excited to, implement new habits, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's it for today's video, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.